who destroyed her with 6 shots from a .45 revolver. Have you any idea of the fearful destructiveness of a .45 at close range?
Hello to all the classic people that are returning. I'm glad you're back. I want to welcome any new visitors. As a technical note, references and citations are listed for each show on the site at classicmovierev.com. Today, we are taking on Illegal 1955. This trail-centric film noir is stacked with great stars, including Edward G. Robinson, Hugh Marlow, J. Adler, DeForest Kelley, Nina Foch, and Jayne Mansfield. This film has a 7.0 rating on imdb.com, which may be a bit too high, even with Edward G. Robinson leading the way. On RottenTomatoes.com, the film doesn't have a tomato meter score and has only a 58% audience approval. New York Times film critic Bosley Crothers said on July 29, 1955, quote, "We'd be willing to bet a nickel that the people who wrote and made Warner Brothers Illegal had the asphalt jungle in mind and were doing their best to imitate it, difficult though it would be. For this juristic crime melodrama has some clear points of similarity to the 1950 thriller. It just doesn't begin to be as good. For one thing, the story of Illegal invades the higher echelons of crime with a fast-thinking, double-dealing lawyer as the principal character. This fellow plays a wily game of footsie with the big boss of the crime syndicate until the end when he turns upon him in defense of a victimized girl. The fact that this hard-bitten lawyer is played by Edward G. Robinson in his old vein of stinging sarcasm is a clue to what you might expect. But more than this, and more than the climate of sordid deceit that is achieved, is the fact that Illegal tries to blueprint the asphalt jungle's Marilyn Monroe. You may remember that Miss Monroe's first screen role was in the latter. She spoke not a word, but went right to work as an adornment in the apartment of the criminal counselor. Well, in Illegal, Jayne Mansfield plays precisely the same sort of role in the apartment of Albert Decker, the big poobah of crime, unquote. Actors.
Right, and I'm a Shakespearean actor.
Edward G. Robinson played the role of D.A. and later criminal lawyer Victor Scott. This great actor was first covered in the film noir western The Violent Men, 1955. These films reflect the type of roles Robinson could obtain after his brush with the Un-American House Un-American Activities Committee. Hugh Marlow played District Attorney's Office investigator Ray Borden. Marlow was first covered in the sci-fi World Without End, 1956. J. Adler played a criminal defendant, Joseph Carter, that helped relaunch Scott's private law career. This wonderful character actor was first covered in 99 River Street, 1953. DeForest Kelley had a very small role as the falsely executed man Edward Clary. Kelley was first covered in the campy horror Night of the Lepus, 1972. This great Western and film noir actor will always be known as Bones from Star Trek 1966 to 69. Nina Foch played lawyer Ellen Miles. She was born in the Netherlands in 1924. Her mother was a silent film and stage actress. Her father was a conductor and composer. When her parents divorced, Nina moved with her mother to New York. As a teen, Nina was a concert pianist. She eventually studied at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Nina worked on regional stages before signing a contract with Columbia at age 19. Her first film was The Return of the Vampire, 1943. Nina has 172 film and television credits, and either group would have been a fine career. Some of her film highlights include A Song to Remember, 1945, My Name is Julia Ross, 1945, I Love a Mystery, 1945, The Guilt of Janet Ames, 1947, The Dark Past, 1948, Johnny Allegro, 1949, An American in Paris, 1951, Executive Suite, 1954, The Ten Commandments, 1956, and Spartacus, 1960. Nina worked on the stage and taught acting for over 40 years. She died in 2008. Jayne Mansfield played singer Angel O'Hara in her film debut. Mansfield was born in Pennsylvania in 1933. Her father died when she was 3, and her mother remarried when she was 6. The new family moved to Dallas, Texas. Mansfield had a high IQ and attended the University of Dallas. When she was 16 in 1949, she married an older fella. The next year, Mansfield had her first child, and it was not long until the couple was divorced. Mansfield eventually moved to Hollywood and began getting roles because of her statuesque build. She was Playmate of the Month in February 1955. Her films include Pete Kelly's Blues 1955, Hell on Frisco Bay 1955, Illegal 1955, The Girl Can't Help It 1956, The Burglar 1957, Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter 1957, The Loves of Hercules 1960, Playgirl After Dark 1960, Promises 1963, where she was the first mainstream actress to appear nude, and When Strangers Meet 1964. Meant to be a rival to Marilyn Monroe, Mansfield's career never hit those heights. She made B movies and worked on television. She was also doing small nightclub acts. Leaving Biloxi, Mississippi, late at night on June 29, 1967, Mansfield and her two companions died in a Louisiana car crash. Mansfield was dead at the age of 34, leaving 5 children behind. A picture showing her wig after the crash led to a persistent rumor that she was decapitated in the accident. Ellen Corby played Scott's secretary, Mrs. Hinkle. Corby was born in 1911 in Wisconsin. She grew up in Philadelphia before moving to Atlantic City in 1932 to work as a chorus girl. She moved on to Hollywood that same year. Corby began appearing in uncredited bits in 1933. She also worked as a script girl while taking acting lessons. Corby had 265 film and television credits, and she would pop up in the background here and there. She was in Cornered 1945, It's a Wonderful Life 1946, and Film Noir Born to Kill 1947. Corby was nominated for a Best Supporting Actress Oscar for her role in I Remember Mama 1948, but she lost to Claire Trevor in Key Largo 1948. Corby was all over television in the 1960s and 70s. We all know that she will be forever known as the somewhat crabby Grandma Esther Walton from The Waltons 1972 to 80, including TV movies from 1971 to 1997. Corby had a stroke in 1976 and died in 1999. Albert Decker played the role of crime boss Frank Garland. Decker was born in New York City in 1905.
I'm walking here! I'm walking here!
He began acting on stage. 10 years later, he was working on Broadway when he made the move to movies. Decker had 113 film and television credits from 1933 to 1969. Some of his memorable films include Beau Geste 1939, Dr. Cyclops 1940, the great film noir The Killers 1946, Gentleman's Agreement 1947, film noir Kiss Me Deadly 1955, East of Eden 1955, and his last film, The Wild Bunch 1969. He was in the California legislature from 1944 to 46. He ran afoul of HUAC and moved to more television work in the 50s. He died in 1968, being found nude in the bathtub with a noose around his neck and his hands handcuffed behind his back. The death was ruled an accident. Story.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
Gloria Benson, Kathy Marlowe, is getting dressed in the bathroom off her bedroom. She turns and her face contorts in terror. The hand of a man and an automatic pistol is shown in the doorway. The woman is shot multiple times. As the credits begin to roll, an all-points bulletin is sent out for Edward Clary, DeForest Kelley. Clary is shown being fingerprinted. Sometime later, the district attorney, Victor Scott, Edward G. Robinson, his legal assistant, Ellen Miles, Nina Foch, and his top-level investigator, Ray Borden, Hugh Marlow, arrive at the courthouse. They are all business and hard as nails. The summation of D.A. Scott convinces the jury that Clary is guilty of her murder.
But her murderer remains this man, Edward Clary, who destroyed her with 6 shots from a .45 revolver. Have you any idea of the fearful destructiveness of a .45 at close range? 1 shot would have been sufficient, but 6.
The jury comes back with guilty. D.A. Scott is a minor star with the press. Scott avoids questions about his political ambitions and his prosecution record. Ellen is in love with Scott, and Ray is in love with Ellen. Scott encourages Ellen to stop spending time with him and get married. As the night of Clary's execution arrives, one news reporter, Joe Knight, Robert Edelston, continuously hounds Scott with an angle towards discrediting him. Scott is too clever to be caught in any verbal traps. Knight mentions that Scott took care of Ellen and sent her to law school after her father died. Scott says her father gave him his start and he is just paying back. Scott gets a call on his car phone from Ray. He is told that the Clary case is coming apart. A wounded criminal has confessed to the killing of Gloria Benson.
Let me past.
Guy by the name of Chavez has a record in 4 states. Robbery detail caught up with him in an alley. He didn't stop shooting till they put 3 bullets into him.
Did you hear their so-called confession yourself?
Yes, it checked all the way. It proves that Clary couldn't possibly have done it.
Well, a man with 3 bullets in him could be delirious, couldn't he?
Sure. But Chavez sounded mighty clear-headed to me.
Scott realizes he is running out of time. He calls the death house at the prison. Clary is being walked to the electric chair. He maintains that he didn't kill the woman.
Not guilty. I want you to know that. I swear it. Yes, I know. You don't believe me, do you? I didn't kill her. I loved her.
The call goes through to the death house. Before the guard can tell them to stop, the electric hum of the chair is heard. Scott is sick. Reporter Knight reads the paper that an innocent man has been killed with sick glee. Ellen comes into the DA's office and is told by Miss Hinkle, Ellen Corby, that Scott has resigned. Ellen goes into Scott's office and he is drunk as a monkey. Ellen tries to buck him up, but there is no helping Scott at this time. Scott is second-guessing every conviction he has ever won. Scott says he will always try to win, regardless of the evidence. He plans on going into civil practice. Scott crawls into a bottle and all of his friends turn their back on him. When he goes to his regular bar, he can no longer get his favorite table. Reporter Knight is waiting there to pounce. One of his old friends, Stephen Harper, Addison Richards, refuses to take him on for a case.
Well, I'm afraid you won't be able to duck that patent suit. I understand the inventor refused the settlement.
Oh, I'm not afraid of a suit.
Well, you needn't be if I handle it.
You? You're not serious, Vic.
Of course I'm serious. I'm setting up a civil practice.
I heard that, but I couldn't believe it. You're a criminal lawyer.
You want to win that suit, don't you?
That's why I'm going to retain Johnson and Reinhardt. Just can't take a chance, Vic.
John, we must hurry.
Ellen goes to see Scott after one of his benders. She takes care of him and fills him with coffee. He keeps telling her to get out. He tells her to marry Ray. His drunkenness and indifference hurts her. The paper shows that the executed man's mother has died of a grief-induced heart attack to add trouble. A guy in the bar is talking about him, and Scott gives him a poke. He ends up in the drunk tank. He is taken to court for arraignment. Ahead of him is Joseph Carter, Jay Adler, who is being charged with manslaughter. He says the guy he killed was a professional fighter. Carter is bound over for trial. The judge knows Scott and fines him $50. In the holding room, Scott gives some legal advice. Carter doesn't want the help.
I ain't got no case.
Never say that out loud. Tell me, is it true that the deceased was a prize fighter still active in the ring?
Well, he fought the semi-wind-up at Clancy's last week.
Well, then get yourself a lawyer. You can win the case.
What'll I pay him with, chips?
No, I mean it. You know, in this state, a professional prize fighter's fists are considered deadly weapons.
So is the lead pipe I smacked him with.
Well, it's self-defense.
You trying to sound like a lawyer?
He is a lawyer.
Him? I'm through with mouthpieces. They take the fee and I take the rap.
Scott says he could get the man off. The new DA, Ralph Ford, Edward Platt, speaks to Ellen and Ray about the Olson case. Ray is still pining for Ellen and jealous of Scott. Ray asks Ellen to marry him. She says she doesn't want to be crowded. Ellen and Ray go to see Scott, who is back in court. He is defending Carter. Scott impugns the witness on the stand. He also hits the witness to prove he can't take a blow. Everyone is shocked. The judge dismisses the case, and we are shown that Scott had a roll of nickels in his hand. Scott is happy to see the visitors. Ellen sees that Scott is back, and she announces her marriage to Ray. Scott gets an office and hires Miss Hinkle as his secretary. Scott only has a handful of cases. Hinkle chews out Scott for not marrying Ellen. Alan Parker, James McAllen, comes in shaking all over and wants to see Scott. Parker is the cashier at the E.A. Smith Company. He says he has stolen $90,000. He spent the money on horses and a woman. Parker has a satchel of cash. Scott takes the money. They put Parker in the library and Scott calls E.A. Smith, Howard St. John. Scott and Smith meet. Scott offers partial restitution of $50,000 if Parker is not prosecuted. Smith at first doesn't accept the money, but the cash offered by Scott is too much. After the release is signed, they bring Parker in so Smith can yell at him. In the conversation, Smith and Parker find out that Scott has paid himself $10,000. At last, Scott asks Smith about Frank Garland and Albert Decker, implying that Smith works for a gangster. Scott goes to meet with D.A. Ford and Smith. Smith says Scott has swindled him out of $10,000. Scott flips it on Smith and says he is the one that committed the felony.
Sorry I'm late, Mr. Ford, but I didn't get your message till a few minutes ago.
I think you know Mr. Smith. Mr. Scott, this gentleman accuses you of having committed a felony in the sum of $10,000.
On the contrary, I saved this corporation $50,000. Mr. Smith is the one who's violated the law.
Me? Me?
In the penal law, there's a crime known as compounding a felony. Would you like a definition?
What does he mean? Compounding a felony is roughly defined as concealing a crime. But that's what he did.
An attorney is not bound to make known to the authorities a crime confessed to him by his client. In fact, he's prohibited from doing so as a privileged communication.
Smith is sent packing. Ford is not happy with the way Scott is acting. Ellen comes in and Scott is glad to see her. A gangster, Andy Garth, Jan Merrill, that works for Garland intercepts Scott outside the DA's office. Garth forces Scott to go to Garland's office as he has a gun. At Garland's office, Garth is sent to take care of an errand. Ray is inside Garland's office, although he has no legitimate reason to be there. Angel O'Hara, Jayne Mansfield, is playing the piano. Ray gives Angel a pat on the shoulder and ducks out the back before Scott comes into the room. Garland starts out threatening Scott for the $10,000. Garland gives Angel a club job and sends her out when he gets mad. Scott is cool and talks about Garland's art collection. Garland asks what he knew about him when he was DA. Scott says a lot, and he would have indicted him eventually. Garland denies that he would be arrested. He offers Scott a job and lots of money. Scott gives him a no deal and says he won't be owned. Parker hasn't left town yet and is running to catch a bus out of town. Garth shoots him in the back from his perch on a park bench. Scott is playing cards with Ray and Harper. Harper offers Scott a criminal trial with a hefty fee. Later, Scott begins working the jury for Al Carroll's, Lawrence Dobkin's murder case. Ellen and D.A. Ford are prosecuting the case. Carroll looks amazingly like Reporter Knight. Garth is watching from the audience. Scott picks up the bottle of poison that is in evidence. He drinks the poison and concludes his case. D.A. Ford makes a protest and asks for a recess. Ellen keeps an eye on Scott. He's as cool as he could be. Scott stops for a few pictures on the way out. Knight thinks Scott has something up his sleeve. Scott goes to a bail bonding office with two men. A doctor is waiting there to give him the antidote for the poison, or pump his stomach. Garland and Harper come in and Scott finds out that he's been working for Garland all along. Angel is singing at a fancy party at Garland's. The men have dates that are not their wives. Scott comes in by himself. Carroll is happy to have avoided the electrical chair.
How you feeling?
Fine. I've discovered that I have a very strong stomach.
How fortunate for all of us. I have a little souvenir for you.
You know, when you drank that stuff,
Yeah?
I nearly got a heart attack.
Well, it's a good thing the DA's analyst forgot to state that that particular poison takes 45 minutes to work.
Garland gives Scott an envelope with a $15,000 check. Scott's new office is booming with clients. Ellen comes to see Scott. She has come to warn Scott that the DA thinks he has a mole in the district attorney's office.
Victor, what's happened to you? Has winning become that important?
It's always been important to me. What are you getting at?
I want to know what's become of the Victor I once knew.
Well, come on, Ellen, get to the point. What is all this?
Victor, you're winning your cases by any crooked method you can use.
You mean the horse parlor case? Well, it's not my fault that your boss couldn't get an indictment.
Do you expect me to believe that? As former district attorney, you have a pipeline into our office. You must have. One of our people's in your pocket, and the DA knows it.
Ellen thinks he is corrupt and leaves disgusted. Private detective follows her back to her office. He reports to the DA, and they think Ellen might be the leak. Ford calls all of the department chiefs for a meeting. Ford says they are still working a case about a horse betting parlor. He says they are going to pick up the suspect again. Ray heads down to the public phone booths. He is interrupted by a friend. Before he can make the call, Ellen arrives. The two head home. Ray pours out a bottle of booze so he can make a trip to the store. Ellen decides to make the trip. When she is gone, Ray ducks into the bedroom and calls to tip the criminals off. Angel answers the phone. Ray snaps at her and gives her his real name.
Mr. Garland's residence? Who is this? Well, of course it makes a difference. Mr. Garland doesn't speak to just anybody.
Listen, you dumb broad. Tell him it's Ray Borden. It's very important.
He asks for a call back. Ellen comes back and picks up the other line when Ray gets his call from Garland. She breaks the bottle, and Ray knows he has been overheard. She tries to run out of the apartment, but Ray traps her. Ray gives a speech for her joining the criminal team. Ray decides that he is going to kill Ellen by pushing her out a window. During the struggle, she falls on the floor and lands on Ray's gun. He keeps coming, and she shoots him 3 times. Ellen is placed in a holding room, and Scott comes to see her. She is not happy because she feels Scott is a criminal. Scott says he knew that Ray was the pipeline. He also says he is the only one that can keep her from getting convicted. Scott puts in a writ of habeas corpus, but the DA thinks Ellen has been working with him. They put Scott under 24-hour surveillance. In the parking lot, Garth forces Scott to go with him. Garland is in one of the cars. He thinks he will be exposed in the trial if Scott defends Ellen. Garland threatens to kill Scott if things go wrong. On the stand, the DA asks Ellen about the telephone call. DA Ford brings up Scott paying for her law degree and giving her a job. She says it's all above board. Ford accuses her of leaking information from the horse betting parlor case to Scott. Ford ties Ellen up in knots on the stand. Scott asks for a recess before recross. He sends Hinkle back to the office to mail all of the incriminating files to herself. Scott goes to see Garland. Garth is there also. Scott wants Garth to admit to being Ray's contact. Garth will get about 3 years in jail if he gives the false testimony. Scott tells Garland that Angel took the call and can tie everything back to him. Garth refuses to go to jail. Garland tells him to lose the case. Scott says his files will go to the DA if he's killed. Garland sends Garth to kill Scott. 2 policemen are still following Scott. Scott sees the tail, and they start trying to get away. Scott gives Hinkle an address to go to, and he gets out of the car. Garth crashes into another car, but manages to shoot Scott. The police car rams Garth's car, and they shoot him down in a gun battle. The court gets word that Scott was attacked. Scott walks into court holding his chest. He calls Angel to the stand. At last, Hinkle comes in with Angel. Angel testifies that it was Ray who called Garland on the night of the tip-off.
Miss O'Hara, were you in the apartment of Frank Garland at approximately 6:30 on the evening of March the 3rd?
Yes, sir.
Do you have personal knowledge of a phone call at that time and date?
Yes, I have.
Who was the call for?
Mr. Garland.
And who made the call?
Ray Borden.
You sure of that?
Absolutely. He told me his name. Besides, he was very insulting.
You'd heard Mr. Borden's voice on other occasions.
Why, of course. I talked to him several times when he came to see Mr. Garland.
Scott falls down from the gunshot wound.
Well, let him call a recess. Gotta protect that witness. Worth the weight in gold.
Mr. Ford, in view of the circumstances and the testimony we've just heard, do you care to proceed with the case?
Your Honor, the people move that the case be dismissed in the interest of justice.
Ford drops the case against Ellen. Ford then says they are picking up Garland. Scott tells Ellen to ignore him next time he tells her to marry someone. Presumably he dies. I'll be right back with conclusions and the world-famous short summary following a word from our sponsors.
We are very excited to let you guys know that we now have merchandise. Or merch, as the young people say. We have unique t-shirts, stickers, and cups related to classic movies and film noir on our partner link. If you buy anything from the store, we receive a small commission, which doesn't cost you anything extra. All of the proceeds are used to continue to bring you new and better podcasts and videos. Follow the links from the podcast show notes or from classicmovierev.com. We really appreciate your support.
Summary. Illegal 1955 is from a play titled The Mouthpiece. It is based on a real lawyer, William J. Fallon. Fallon had over 120 homicide cases without losing any. Fallon also defended Arnold Rothstein, the gambler who allegedly fixed the 1919 World Series, commonly known as the Black Sox scandal. The play The Mouthpiece was produced as a film 2 times before Illegal 1955. The first was the pre-code film The Mouthpiece 1932. The second time was The Man Who Knew Too Much 1940. World famous short summary: if you like her, kiss her. Hope you enjoyed today's show. You can find connections to social media and email on the site at classicmovierev.com or in the podcast show notes. If you enjoyed this show, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you've already subscribed, you can tell a friend, colleague, or family member about the show, or leave a review at Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show get found. If you want to comment, suggest a movie, or help out, contact me by email at jec@classicmovierev.com. Beware the movers